You ever open the door to your house and realize the entire building emotionally ghosted you? That was me at 17. I came home from my shift at the gas station, reeking of off-brand nachos and existential despair, only to find my house hollow. Not robbed. Not ransacked. Just removed. Couch? Gone. TV? Gone. Even the weird cactus my mom kept naming after failed politicians? Gone. All that remained was a note on the counter, written in the stiff handwriting of someone who still signs checks in cursive. You'll figure it out. No. Love. No explanation. No clue where they went. Just 5 words that said, "We left, and we expect you to survive it." To be fair, this wasn't totally out of character. I wasn't exactly the family MVP. My mom's favorite son was Daniel, the cello prodigy, the one with the orthodontically perfect smile and a college application that read like an Ivy League thirst trap. My dad? He knew how to fix a carburetor blindfolded but couldn't remember my birthday with a gun to his head. I was the ghost in the hallway. The kid who was fine, even when I wasn't. When Daniel got strep throat, my mom made homemade soup with imported herbs. When I had bronchitis, I got a lukewarm mug of orange juice and a suggestion to toughen up. So no, I wasn't surprised they left. But I was still crushed. The first night, I curled up in a 24-hour laundromat, hugging my backpack like it owed me rent. I watched strangers fold warm clothes while my teeth chattered from vending machine dinners and the kind of loneliness that tastes like metal. From there, it was a patchwork survival plan. I couch-surfed where I could. 1 night in a friend's garage. 2 nights in a car that wasn't mine. Eventually, I found a self-storage unit downtown that would let me pay in cash. It was windowless, damp, and probably illegal, but it was mine. My life condensed into a 10 by 10 metal box. Peanut butter crackers in a shoebox. A cheap flashlight. 1 threadbare blanket that smelled like cigarettes and courage. For showers, I used the YMCA and prayed nobody noticed I was drying off with a t-shirt. But here's the thing they didn't plan for: I didn't die. I didn't give up. In fact, I started showing up to school more. Because the cafeteria had heat. Because the library had outlets. Because I wanted to win, even if nobody was watching. I picked up hours at a local diner. Denise, the manager, had been through 3 divorces and had no patience for whining, which weirdly made her the most nurturing adult I knew. She gave me shifts. She let me sleep in the break room after close, sometimes sliding me pancakes from the leftover stack. That job saved me. Not just financially, but mentally. It gave me a schedule. A rhythm. A reason to keep going. At night, under the hum of fluorescent lights in my storage cell, I made a vow. I don't know how yet, but one day, I'll make them wish they hadn't left that note. And with that, I began building a life from rubble. They say rock bottom builds character. But they forget to mention it also builds back problems. Mine came with a metal floor, a half-dead flashlight, and a job at a diner where the grease was more consistent than the paychecks. But hey, I was vertical. I was showing up. And most importantly, I was stubborn. I worked the graveyard shift mostly. It paid crap, but it gave me time. Between frying eggs and mopping soda spills, I started watching YouTube videos on Denise's office computer when she wasn't looking. Personal finance. Budgeting. Coding. There was one guy, Finance Greg, who wore a vest 3 sizes too small and yelled things like, "Debt is a disease," like he was auditioning for a TED Talk and an exorcism at the same time. I took notes. I signed up for a free library card, started reading about budgeting and career paths. I printed out resumes I didn't really qualify for and learned how to make them look just convincing enough. I still remember Googling how to sound professional without sounding like a robot, and thinking if I ever make it, I'm writing a book called Success for the Semi-Feral. It wasn't glamorous. I ate instant noodles seasoned with depression. Slept in jackets because I didn't have a blanket thick enough. I once used a free sample packet of hotel shampoo to wash my socks in a YMCA sink. But slowly, painfully, gloriously slowly, things shifted. I picked up a second gig doing data entry. It was through a sketchy Craigslist ad that paid via prepaid Visa cards, but I learned Excel and how to say, "Attached is the spreadsheet," in 19 different professional tones. I got good. Not great. Not impressive, but dependable. Then a temp agency called. Said they liked my formatting. I almost passed out on the bus when I heard the words. Recurring contract. With that income, I moved out of the storage unit and into a basement studio apartment that smelled like wet carpet and ambition. It had a radiator that hissed like an angry cat and one window that faced a brick wall, but it was mine. No one could leave me a note and vanish here. That winter, I bought myself a twin mattress off Facebook Marketplace and cried the first night I slept without hearing traffic or someone screaming down the alley. I'd forgotten what silence sounded like. From there, things sped up. I enrolled in community college part-time. Took classes in IT, finance, systems design. I biked 45 minutes each way to save on bus fare. On weekends I still worked at the diner. Denise called me Mr. College now and started giving me leftover pie slices like I was some kind of celebrity. I started freelancing too. Building small websites, managing spreadsheets for stressed-out small business owners who were too tired to question my age or credentials. My first client was a dog groomer named Marlene who paid me in cash and free shampoo. Not for me. For her poodle. But still. Every dollar I earned had to stretch like it was training for a marathon. But I budgeted like a man possessed. Rent, food, books, savings. Slowly, the emergency column in my spreadsheet stopped being red. Then it turned green. I bought a cheap used laptop. Took online certifications. Started applying for entry-level jobs like I belonged there. I practiced interviews in the mirror until my reflection looked bored. At 23, I landed my first salaried role at a mid-size IT firm. The onboarding lady asked about my college GPA. I said, I graduated from the University of Getting It Done. She laughed. I got the badge. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I was becoming. But even then, through all the wins, the little triumphs, the steady build, I kept one eye on the past. On that note. On the people who signed it. They hadn't called. Not once. Not a text. Not a just checking in. Not a fake holiday email. It was like I'd been deleted from their contact list and memory banks in one smooth swipe. And somehow, that silence spoke louder than anything else. Still, I kept going. I started dressing like I had meetings. I learned how to stand up straight. How to speak without apologizing every 5 sentences. How to say, actually, I disagree, without flinching. I upgraded apartments. Bought a toaster that didn't spark when plugged in. One morning I realized my fridge had food in it and a light bulb, and I nearly cried again. It wasn't perfect. But it was mine. All of it. And for the first time in a long time, I stopped asking if I was worth staying for. Because I already had. Here's a weird thing nobody warns you about. When your life finally gets better, the grief gets louder. Like, yeah, I had a bed now. A coffee maker that wasn't held together by duct tape. I wore button-ups with actual collars, not the kind printed on discount hoodies. But every time I got a raise, or nailed a presentation, or made rent early, this little voice in the back of my head whispered, "You're doing this alone." Still. And that stung more than I expected. Especially because I had no idea if my family even knew I was alive. I checked once. Searched their names on Facebook. They'd moved to a new house. My brother had graduated and posted 3 whole albums about it. Caps, gowns, champagne. No sign of me. Not even a vague, "Wish you were here," to pretend they hadn't surgically removed me from their memory. It was fine. I mean, not fine, but survivable. I threw myself into work. I started as a junior systems analyst, translation, spreadsheet jockey, and made it my mission to become the guy people came to when their tech died 5 minutes before a pitch. By 25, I got promoted. Lead analyst. New badge. Better coffee in the break room. I bought myself a second-hand leather chair off Craigslist to celebrate. It squeaked like it had trauma, but it was mine. I still did freelance gigs on the side. Nights, weekends, lunch breaks and broom closet phone booths with bad Wi-Fi. I wasn't just stacking money, I was building escape velocity. And slowly, the idea of launching something of my own stopped sounding like a fantasy and started sounding like a deadline. I founded my own small consulting agency, just me at first. Then a web designer. then a part-time admin who had the emotional resilience of a Navy SEAL and the typing speed of an anime hacker. We grew fast. Word of mouth fast. Because I wasn't some LinkedIn influencer screaming about synergy. I just did the work. Quietly. Well. And one day, that quiet work got loud. It started with a podcast. One of our clients, a startup founder I'd helped untangle a year of bad infrastructure, invited me on his show. I almost said no. I hate my voice recorded. I sound like an insecure raccoon trying to sound confident. But he insisted. So I showed up. Talked about scaling systems. Gave some tips. Told a short version of my story, started with nothing, built something, still figuring it out. The episode went mildly viral. Not Taylor Swift viral. But enough that I woke up to 72 unread emails and a calendar that looked like it had caught a virus. People wanted consultations. Advice. Mentorship. A few just wanted to say they cried in the car listening to me explain what it felt like to eat dinner beside a vending machine. I was stunned. Flattered. Slightly terrified. And then came the message. One line. No punctuation. Saw your podcast. We should talk. The sender? My brother. Caleb. Golden boy. Family favorite. Recipient of homemade soup and unconditional applause. I stared at it for 5 minutes before closing my laptop like it had just sworn at me. No. How are you? No. Sorry for the whole disappearing act. Just a casual assumption that we could pick up wherever they left me. I didn't reply. Not right away. Instead, I sat with it. Let the feeling wash over me, the mix of confusion, resentment, curiosity, and a weird, aching sadness I didn't even know I'd kept in storage. The next day, a second message came through. This time, from my mom. Your voice hasn't changed at all. So proud of you. Can we reconnect? Proud? Proud of what exactly? Proud that I survived what they did. Proud that I managed not to become the cautionary tale they left behind? Again, I didn't answer. But I thought about it. Hard. And that night, for the first time in a long while, I felt 17 again, standing in an empty kitchen with a sticky note in my hand and a silence so loud it hurt my teeth. Some part of me had always hoped this moment would come. That they'd reach out. Regret it. Apologize. But now that it had, it didn't feel like justice. It felt like strategy. Like they'd only noticed I was missing once my name hit search results. Still, I typed one reply. To my brother. What changed? I didn't hit send. Not yet. But the question lingered. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. It took me a week to open the email again. The one from my mom. Your voice hasn't changed. So proud of you. Can we reconnect? It sat in my inbox like a stain I didn't have the energy to scrub. She wasn't wrong. My voice hadn't changed. But the person using it had. I used to speak like I was hoping not to be noticed. Now I used it to close contracts. To run meetings. To explain complex tech workflows in plain English to people with six-figure egos and zero patience. And here she was, typing like she hadn't left me unread for 12 years. The next day, another email came. This time from Caleb. Things have been rough. We're trying to make things right. Can we meet? Rough? Try living behind a storage unit next to a feral cat named Meatball who used to hiss every time I sneezed. Try going to school with sleep deprivation in one hand and frostbite in the other. Try being erased like an optional footnote in a family album. Still, I read it. Twice. Then a third time. Because underneath the fury, there was this tiny thread of something I couldn't shake, curiosity. What did they look like now? Did they feel guilty? Had they told anyone what they did? Did they still pretend I moved out early? Like it was some brave teenage gap year and not a strategic abandonment? My therapist, yes, I finally got one, thank you employer health plan, told me to take my time. She said grief wasn't linear, and closure isn't always something you get from people. Sometimes you make it like IKEA furniture, alone, confused, and swearing a lot. But I couldn't ignore it forever. So I replied. Just one line. Where? Caleb messaged back within 10 minutes. Almost like he was waiting for it. Suggested a neutral place, an old coffee shop downtown near the university. Said he'd be there Saturday. Said he hoped I'd come. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no either. Saturday came faster than expected. I put on jeans that didn't scream. Revenge outfit. Grabbed my laptop, just in case I needed an excuse to bail, and headed out. It was raining. Of course it was raining. Every dramatic movie scene from the 2000s had trained me to expect reconciliation moments to come with gray clouds and moody jazz. The coffee shop hadn't changed much. Still smelled like overpriced tea and old ambition. I spotted Caleb instantly. Same hair. Same posture. Wearing a jacket I swear he stole from our dad back in high school. He looked up. Smiled. Stood awkwardly. Hey, he said, like we'd bumped into each other at Costco. Hey, I replied, sitting down across from him. For a few seconds we just stared. I took inventory. No bruises. No tears. No visible signs of penance. You look good, he said. I wanted to say, yeah, success will do that to someone who had to crawl to earn every bite. But instead I nodded. So, he started, fidgeting with his coffee lid. Mom's been trying to reach out too. She feels terrible, you know. About everything. Does she? I asked, keeping my voice flat. Or is this just what guilt looks like when someone's LinkedIn famous? He winced. Okay. Fair. There was a beat of silence. She always said you were strong, he added, almost like an apology. Said you'd land on your feet. I blinked. That's a weird way to justify throwing someone off the roof. He chuckled. Then stopped when I didn't. Look, he said. I didn't know. I swear. I was just a kid too. They told me you left. Said you wanted to be on your own. I didn't realize what really happened until years later. I stared at him. I was 17, I said. 1 year younger than you are when you're considered an adult in court. Old enough to pay taxes. Old enough to be abandoned. He looked away. I'm sorry. It didn't fix anything. But it didn't hurt to hear. They're not doing great, he admitted. Dad lost his job. Medical bills piled up. They thought maybe, if we reached out. There it was. The ask? It wasn't about love. It was about leverage. I'm not a lottery ticket, I said. I didn't mean. But you are here to cash in, I interrupted. Let's be real. He didn't argue. And somehow, that honesty softened me. Just a little. I gathered my things. Tell Mom I got the message. Tell her I'm glad she's proud. Tell her I'm proud too, for leaving when I did. He nodded, not standing up. Maybe he knew he didn't earn that part yet. As I stepped into the rain again, I realized something. The kid they left behind wouldn't have made it to this moment. But I did. And I didn't owe them the version of me they refused to raise. 3 days after I met with Caleb, I got an email from my mother. No subject line. Just a wall of text. It started with, I've been thinking a lot about the past. Always a fun opener when it comes from the person who once left you a goodbye note like it was a gym locker memo. She said she regretted how things had unfolded. Unfolded like this was all a series of gentle misunderstandings instead of strategic abandonment. She mentioned how hard things had been for the family. How she wished we could all go back and do things differently. And then, just when I thought it might lean into sincerity, she attached 3 photos from my childhood. Me in a Batman costume. Me asleep on the couch with Caleb. Me at 7, grinning beside a birthday cake I baked for myself. I stared at that last one for a long time. I remember that cake. It came from a boxed mix I bought with change from under the couch. Nobody else had remembered the date. She wrote, You always had such a big heart. I know it's still in there. I didn't respond. Instead, I paced my apartment like the walls owed me answers. My brain kept bouncing between anger and pity, like a tennis match where both players were somehow losing. That night, I told my therapist everything. She nodded through most of it, then asked, If they didn't want something, would you still want to talk to them? The answer surprised me. No. I wouldn't. I wasn't 12 anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone to pick me up after soccer practice. I had my own car now. My own keys. My own damn steering wheel. Still, curiosity's a hell of a drug. So when my mom texted and asked to meet, just once, I agreed. We chose a diner. Not my diner. A random one halfway between our neighborhoods, with vinyl seats that stuck to your legs and a jukebox that hadn't worked since the Obama administration. She arrived 10 minutes early. Still punctual. Still polished. Same stiff smile, like she was hosting a dinner party and not begging for a footnote in my life. She didn't hug me. Just sat down and said, "You look good." I nodded. "So do you." It was a lie. She looked tired. Like the kind of tired sleep doesn't fix. We ordered. Small talk. Weather. Local construction. I let her speak first, because I wanted to hear what kind of revisionist history she'd bring to the table. "I know what we did was hard to understand," she started. "But you were always so independent. You never asked for help." I blinked. "I was 17. You were resourceful." "I was 17. She flinched at that. Like she'd hoped I'd moved on enough to forget the math. "I thought you'd land on your feet," she said. I leaned forward. "No. You hoped I'd disappear. You hoped the problem would solve itself." Her eyes glossed, but I didn't stop. "You left a child. Alone. With nothing. No money, no support, not even a way to find you. That's not a gamble. That's abandonment." "I know," she whispered. "And I'm sorry." For a second, it sounded real. For a second, I almost believed it. Then she said, "But things are different now. We're not in a good place financially. Your father's in rough shape. Caleb can't do it all." And there it was. The why. The soft re-entry followed by the hard sell. "I'm not an ATM with childhood trauma," I said flatly. "I'm not asking for handouts," she said quickly. "Just maybe some help. A short-term thing. Until we stabilize." My laugh wasn't kind. "You didn't call me when I was in a storage unit eating crackers for dinner. But now that I'm successful, you suddenly found my number?" She reached across the table. "You were always the strong one. We thought you'd be okay. Being strong doesn't mean being disposable." She didn't have a comeback for that. I finished my coffee, stood up, and dropped a 20 on the table. She looked up at me, eyes wet. "You really won't help?" "I did," I said. "I helped myself. When no one else did." I walked out. And this time, there was no note left behind. Just the silence she taught me how to survive. The next week was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your gut itch. No calls. No texts. No surprise visits. I let myself believe it was over, that they got the message, packed up their guilt, and moved on like they always do. But people like my parents don't move on. They circle back. The first sign was the email from my dad. His first message to me in years. No greeting. Just 2 sentences. "Your mother said you were cold. We didn't raise you to be selfish." And just like that, I was 17 again, eating peanut butter off a spoon in a metal box while wondering if anyone would notice if I vanished. I closed the email without responding. 3 days later, they tried a new tactic. A text from Caleb. "Can we try family therapy? Just 1 session. You can pick the place." I stared at it for a full minute before muttering, "You need a therapist. I need an exorcist." I didn't reply. That weekend, someone buzzed my apartment from the front door. I answered out of habit. It was my dad. I didn't say anything. Just stared at the camera. He stood there, older than I remembered, looking like a man who wore disappointment like cologne. He didn't speak either. Just waited. After 15 seconds, I ended the call and locked the building's lobby from my phone. 2 hours later, I got a message. "You owe us a conversation." I owed them nothing. And honestly, I was getting angry that they thought otherwise. Still, the dreams came back. Those old, twitchy, late-night flashes. Me locked outside. Me yelling for help. Me reading that stupid sticky note again and again, like it might one day say something else. I brought it up to my therapist. She said, "You didn't break the cycle by confronting them. You broke it by not becoming them." Then she asked if I had any safe people to lean on. That question sat with me longer than I wanted. Because while I had clients, contacts, the occasional We should grab coffee. Acquaintance. I didn't have people. Not real ones. Until the knock on my door came 2 weeks later. I opened it to see a woman I barely recognized, maybe early 30s, in a raincoat and messy bun, holding a gift bag that clearly hadn't been wrapped with much confidence. "Hi," she said. "I'm Jenny. I'm married to Caleb." "Oh." She gave a nervous laugh. "I didn't come to argue. I just thought, maybe you deserve this." She handed me the bag and took a step back, like I might bite. Inside? A photo. Me. Age 6. Holding a snow cone. Smiling like I didn't know what disappointment was yet. "I found that in one of the old boxes in Caleb's parents' attic," she said. It didn't feel right staying there. I stared at it. Then at her. She looked embarrassed. But also determined. "They're not good people," she said quietly. "I mean, you know that. But I didn't, fully, until recently. They've told Caleb 100 versions of your story. None of them made sense. He believed what was easiest." I nodded once. "That tracks." She hesitated again. "They're getting worse. Not just manipulative. Dangerous. Yelling. Threats. They're pressuring Caleb to get money from you. Telling him he owes it. That you owe it." I leaned on the doorframe. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he's starting to believe them less. And I think he needs someone who doesn't lie to him." That landed like a dull thud in my chest. "He talks about you now," she added. "Says he wishes he'd said something sooner. Done something. But guilt doesn't come with a map." We stood in silence. Then she said, "I'll go. Just don't block his number yet." She turned to leave. "Jenny," I said. "Why help me? You're not family." She smiled, sad but steady. "Maybe not by blood. But you still deserve truth." And just like that, the door that had been slammed on me for years didn't swing open, but it cracked. Just enough to let light through. 3 days after Jenny's visit, Caleb texted again. This time it said, "I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't know how much they lied. I just didn't want to believe it." And for once, I believed him. We met in a park. Neutral ground. No parents. No ghost stories. Just 2 men on a bench that smelled like sun-warmed wood and late summer. He looked rough. Tired in the way people get when the lives they've held on to start falling apart. "I kept thinking I'd just fix it," he said. "Like if I got you and them in the same room, everything would just click." I shook my head. "Some rooms are fire hazards. They're not meant for rebuilding." He nodded. "They told me you left because you didn't want to be part of the family. That you were rebellious. Ungrateful. Cold. I was 17. I said again, almost tired of explaining it. But he didn't argue. "I know. Now I know." He pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I braced for some weird legal ask, but it was just a list, names, dates, moments. Jenny and I started writing it all down. All the inconsistencies. The times they lied. The things that didn't add up. We went through emails. Photos. Even found a few receipts that proved you were telling the truth about the timeline. I raised an eyebrow. "You cross-referenced family trauma with receipts?" He cracked a smile. "It was either that or drink whiskey in the garage and cry." Jenny picked spreadsheets. That made me laugh. First real laugh I'd had around him in years. Then his face went serious. "They've gotten worse," he said. "Angrier. Paranoid. They think we're conspiring against them. Last night, my dad came to our house. Didn't knock. Just stood in the driveway for an hour." My stomach twisted. "That's not just guilt. That's intimidation." "We're getting a lawyer," Caleb said. "Restraining orders, legal separation, whatever it takes." "You serious?" I asked. He nodded. "Jenny's done. I'm close. And I think we'd both feel safer with a paper trail." I paused. "Do you want to stay with me? Just until it's handled?" He looked stunned. "You'd let us?" "You're not them," I said. "And you showed up. That counts." They moved in the next weekend. Jenny brought 3 boxes and a labradoodle named Waffles that immediately peed on my welcome mat like a territorial greeting. Caleb slept on the couch without complaint. Jenny took over my kitchen like a woman on a mission to undo years of microwave trauma. And suddenly, my apartment felt like, not just space, but home. We cooked together, watched movies, talked like humans instead of survivors. They started calling it the recovery wing. One night, over takeout, Caleb said, "I can't believe I used to think they were normal. Normal doesn't leave sticky notes." I replied. The legal process was grueling. Statements, documentation, even an old email from our dad saying, "He was never meant to stay." That line hit hard. Like I'd been a placeholder kid. A test run. But we submitted everything. Restraining orders were filed. The lawyer said our chances were solid. Their visit to my building, the emails, the pressure, it all painted a picture. Still, the night before the hearing, someone left a photo outside my door. It was printed. No envelope. Just tucked under the doormat. It showed me, Caleb, and a little girl, his daughter, Lily, playing in a park. It was recent, private, and clearly meant to scare. My chest locked up. I called security. Called the lawyer. We reported it as evidence of stalking. The next day, my parents didn't show up to the hearing. Their lawyer withdrew representation. The judge granted full protection orders. It wasn't over, but it was ours. Back home, Jenny poured cheap champagne into coffee mugs and toasted to peace by paperwork. We clinked. We laughed. We exhaled. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something settle in my bones. Not relief. Not victory. Just rest. Like my life finally had room to breathe. The apartment was quiet the morning after the hearing. Not haunted quiet. Not tension before a storm quiet. Just quiet. The kind that makes you realize your nervous system doesn't always have to be on high alert. Jenny made pancakes. Waffles, the dog, not the food, stared at her like she was reinventing breakfast. Caleb sat at the counter with his laptop, helping Lily with a kindergarten reading app that somehow involved more explosions than I expected. I stood in the hallway, coffee in hand, just watching. Not in a creepy way. Just in awe. Because this wasn't how I thought the story would end. When I was 17 and sleeping in a storage unit, I imagined revenge. I fantasized about showing up in a sleek car, throwing success in their faces, and walking away without flinching. I wanted them to beg. They never did. Instead, they asked for help with bills and left photos on my doorstep like threats disguised as nostalgia. And what I learned is this: closure doesn't always come gift-wrapped in apologies. Sometimes it looks like a restraining order. Sometimes it's pancakes on a Tuesday. Sometimes it's letting people in who were willing to show up without needing anything in return. Later that afternoon, a letter arrived in my mailbox. It was from my mom. Handwritten. 5 pages long. She said she didn't agree with the court decision. That they meant well. That some children don't appreciate what's done for them. Then she softened. Talked about how she missed Caleb. How she wanted to see Lily. How maybe someday we could all sit down and talk like adults. I didn't read the 5th page. Instead, I put the envelope back in the box and returned it to sender. That night, I sat with Caleb on the balcony while the city hummed in the distance. "Think they'll ever really stop?" he asked. "I don't care," I said. "They're not in the story anymore." He nodded. Then smirked. "You ever think we'd end up like this?" I looked around. A kid sleeping in a blanket fort, a dog with a chew toy that used to be my sock, and a woman who knew how to wield both spreadsheets and sarcasm like weapons of healing. "No," I admitted. "But I'm glad we did." Jenny joined us with tea. Lily sleep mumbled something about dragon cupcakes and rolled over. And I thought about that kid version of me. The one holding a sticky note and a backpack full of fear. I wish I could tell him, "You don't get the family you're born into. You get the one you build, from people who choose to stay, even when it's hard." Because now I have that. A brother who grew up. A sister-in-law who told the truth when no one else would. A niece who draws me with a cape and calls me Uncle Super Guy. And me? I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I'm free. Not perfect. Not fully healed. But free in the way that matters, surrounded by people who don't need me to be anything except honest, present, and human. The story didn't end the way I planned. It ended better. And this time, nobody left a note. Because nobody had to leave.